Peace to all of the divine primordial deities. Now, if you're not privy to this information, I suggest just keep it scrolling. I am not here for the dead. I am only here for the awakened. If it resonate, let it marinate. If it don't apply, let it fly. Now let's get deep. Now everybody have been trying to figure out the language of the ancient ones. I even came across some information stating that it was the Netta. But here's the thing. That's not it. Keep in mind that this is metaphysics and esoteric knowledge. Now let's get into it. Now keep in mind the tongue is described as being the double-edged sword. But what is that? Follow me. Now on the day of Pentecost, in the book of Acts, the divine dropped it on me a few weeks ago on what the original language is of the ancient ones, which is our native tongue. The day of Pentecost, keep in mind the Pentecost is the mind, it is the kingdom, where the 12 cranial nerves sit, which is the disciples. Now, when this took place, they stated that the shakanah came upon them, and it appeared to them as cloven tongues, and it descended on each and every one of the disciples, meaning it set upon them, and they were all filled with the Holy Spirit, which is none other than the shakanah, which is the great mother, that is the serpent. They also stated that they began to speak in other tongues, and the Spirit gave them utterance, which is the gift of speech. And they were all able to speak in this divine language, but not just any language, the language of the ancient ones. Now, what you got to understand is, the only way you can speak this language is when the shakanah come upon you. She have to choose you, which is why this language is only for the chosen. Now, it stated that they all marveled and were amazed, saying to one another, "Behold, are not all these Galileans? And how I hear every man." Keep in mind, this is King James, and I can't stand King James because he's so poetic, it's crazy. It says, "And how hear we every man in his own tongue, wherein he was born." Now let me break it down. When it states that they were speaking in the tongue that they were born, meaning they were speaking in their native tongue, it was restored back to them when the shakanah came upon them. Now keep in mind, the double-edged sword is the cloven tongue. Not everybody have a cloven tongue, which is a double-edged sword. And if the shakanah do not come upon you, you just have a regular tongue. You do not have a cloven tongue. What is a cloven tongue? It's two tongues. You have a spiritual tongue and you have a physical tongue. Cloven means divided or separated. When the cloven tongue come upon you, you are able to speak into the spirit. You are able to speak things into the physical. You have the ability to make things manifest, and you have the ability to make things disappear. See, we have the original Heka, but when you have the original Heka, which is the magic, right, to speak things into existence, because we are musicians by nature, with the combination of the cloven tongue, you become powerful. Because that cloven tongue can cut up through the spirit, and they can cut up through the physical. Now understand, the great mother, which is the dragon in the book of Revelations, she was slain before the foundations of earth. But it also stated that she gives power to the beast of the earth. Who is the beast of the earth? We are, which is the ones that they are calling the beast, which is 666, which is none other than your carbon beings. The shakanah, which is the great mother, she is the one who give you the power. And it is only given to the chosen, which is her children. This cloven tongue is that power. And when she give you that power, she restores your native tongue, which is the language of the ancient ones. Now, they stated not everybody is supposed to speak this because the ones around you is supposed to be able to translate it. But this is what you gotta know, is that the soul is God. And this is a divine language of the gods. And the only one that can translate this is your soul, which is God. That's why when you speak this language and you have this utterance and this desire to want to burst out with this language, speak it, because that is your divine language. That is what they call the cloven tongues. You are talking directly into the divine, and the soul translate that over into the physical. And that is where you get your downloads, your uploads, and all of this different information that comes from the divine. It's when you speak in that language, you get the information you need, and it's translated back over to the physical for you. And it is not for the physical man to interpret. It's not for the physical man to translate. It is for the soul to translate, which is God, that translated back over into the physical for you to understand. That's your gnosis, your inner knowledge, which again, this is a divine language of the ancient ones, and only those that is chosen by the shakanah, which is the great mother, is the only ones that's going to be able to receive the cloven tongue. So in the meantime, you don't have a double-edged sword unless you have been chosen by the great mother to have it. She has to choose you. So no, our native tongue is not no netta. It is something that is not wrote on physical paper. It is a divine language that comes from the divine, that is spoken only to the divine. So no, our native tongue is not lost, because I speak it all the time. And by speaking this language, this is how you heighten your spirit. This is how you heighten your energy and your vibration, because this language elevates you the more and more you speak it. It is the language of the Nagas, which is the serpent people, and it's called the Cloven Tongue because it is a serpent language, only for the serpent gods, which is us.